everyone, this is Catherine O'Connell and welcome to Lawyer on Air. If you are looking for inspirational stories about women in law, then this is the podcast for you. Join me and my lawyer ladies as we enjoy a glass of wine after a hard day at work and talk about the world of women in law. It's my passion to share stories of amazing legal ladies who are working as in-house legal counsel, who have law firm roles, who are leading on boards, and who are doing law differently. From time to time, I will also invite special guests on the show to share their insights on legal recruiting and tips for getting hired as a successful lawyer in Japan. I hope you will enjoy getting to know these amazing women who I am so proud to share a profession with. I'm glad you're here and I hope you enjoy the show. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode in the Lawyer on Air podcast. In this episode, I share with you another diverse story of a woman lawyer working in Japan. I'm Catherine, the host of the show, and I'm a lawyer based in Tokyo for more than 20 years, and I love helping unlock the wisdom of the stories that women lawyers never tell. I want to take a moment just to share my thanks to all the Lawyer Extraordinaire fans who listen to each and every episode and share them with others. Lawyer on Air podcast has hit a milestone of 20,000 plays in June 2024. It's something I could never have dreamed about, and to be supported by Jane in the way that we tell these stories and deliver them out to the world has just been fabulous for me. So thank you so much to my listeners. A shout out goes especially to my top fans, Aramide Fields and Akio Inoko Hewitt. You both go wild sharing and commenting on LinkedIn about what impacted you from listening to the stories told. So my very, very special thanks to you both. Today I'm speaking with my guest, Gillian Musgrave. Gillian told me that what she has learnt from her career in law so far is that loyalty underpins everything. Loyalty to your employer, to your colleagues, and to your clients. Loyalty takes you a long way. Well, Gillian is a lawyer who qualified as a solicitor in England and Wales in 1990. Her specialist area of law is shipping and marine insurance. Gillian has truly carved out for herself a unique advisory and consultancy area in maritime law. She initially worked in maritime law firms in London and Italy. She then moved to in-house and worked for many years as a director of claims with a P&I Club. During our conversation, I found out that a P&I Club is a specialist insurer of ship owners' liabilities. Working at a P&I Club, she managed teams of claims executives in various company offices worldwide. Gillian is a Japanese-registered foreign lawyer in Japan, a Gaiben, and is now working in Tokyo as an in-house consultant to a Japanese insurance company, giving advice on English law, maritime matters. You can check out Gillian's full bio in the show notes. On this episode, Gillian shares 7 simple yet amazing tips for success as a lawyer that are her guiding North Stars. She also shares all about the world of maritime law, and when accidents on the water happen, as it did recently with the Dali resulting in the Baltimore Port Bridge collapse, we will find out from Gillian the skills and experience that a maritime lawyer executes. And Gillian also shares her favourite book, the person she would most like to meet, her favourite expression, and other fun facts. Let's get into it. Hello, Gillian, and welcome to the show.
Hello, Catherine. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for saying yes to coming on the show. And I'm going to ask you the question that I ask every guest. If we were meeting up in person, where would we be? Do you have a favourite wine bar or restaurant that you love to go to? And what would be your choice of beverage from the menu?
Well, when it comes to bars, I like to choose bars that are quiet and that have low lighting because ladies of a certain age, it suits them better. But I don't have a particular bar, but I do have a late night cocktail bar that I'm very fond of. It is a bit naughty. It is a bit nice to be going out late. And it's called Bar Trench in Ebisu. You may know it.
No, I don't. Tell me more.
Great. It's great because it's small but perfectly formed and quite a sort of trendy little place. It's part of a group, but this one, the smallest one, is, I think, the nicest, Bar Trench. And they will do
Ooh.
any cocktail you want.
What do you normally choose?
I normally choose a stinger. It's a mix of brandy and creme de menthe. It sounds a little bit weird, but that brandy and peppermint on ice comes through. It's just delicious.
Wow.
So what would you have if you were going to the bar? You'll have to think about that when
I
we
would
go.
love to check the menu. Maybe it's another one that you would suggest is really delicious as well. But I might even just go for the brandy and creme de menthe stinger and
Mhm.
join you on that, at least for the first one. I love it. Thank you for that. And I did not know that bar, but I like the idea that you're going out later at night and delving into those sorts of parts of Tokyo. It's so nice. Are you a night owl?
Well, it depends really. I like to be a night owl, but when I'm working throughout the week, sometimes
Yeah.
I've learned now that it's best not to be too late during the week.
Yes, that is
But on
true.
a Thursday or a Friday, so we can go tonight.
Yes, it's also that one where people say, "Oh, should we have one more?" And you go, no, right? It's always that last one that gets you over the threshold not very well, I think. So it's good to hold back a little bit. Well, that's so nice. I'm looking forward to going there with you sometime. So let's get into your career background and where you are now. But traveling back in time to that time when you were a child or a young adult, can you tell me what you were thinking about then, dreaming about to do in the future?
Well, when I was a child, I was in Nigeria.
Really?
Yeah, my father was working there. My father and mother moved there after the war, and so myself and my sisters, we were all born there. And I was there until I was 14. My father left Nigeria at that time when I went to boarding school in England from the age of 8. But all my childhood was spent in Nigeria, basically, and it was wonderful. So I had the opportunity to go to the beach every weekend, and we were living on Lagos, which is a little island. And so you had to cross the water to get to the beach. Not far, but just over a lagoon. And we would sail. And so as we were sailing over to the beach area, we would be in the shipping channel and ships would be coming in and out all the time. And I was really fascinated by all these ships. And there were lots of ships anchored offshore as well, quite far out offshore. And unfortunately, in those days, there was not much pollution control. And so sometimes we would get bad pollutions on the beach. Really strong memories of my childhood was the sailing and the beaches and the ships.
Wow. And that has just been so instrumental in impacting you for what you did later. And we're going to get into that. How incredible. So, what happened then? Did something happen that got you interested in law?
Yes, it did actually. I left school and got married. I got married very young at 18, and I married a solicitor. He was practicing in general practice. So in those days, general practitioners often had maybe 3 or 4 offices in an area, and he was practicing in one of them. So he was doing conveyancing and wills and corporate, the sort of usual general practice work. And I got married. I had my son. Just after I got married, I did a secretarial course, actually. And I was working in law firms often, doing temporary secretarial work. And sometimes I helped out at my husband's law firms and different law offices in a secretarial capacity. And I became interested at that time. We used to, honestly, this is a long time ago. And in those days, we had manual typewriters. And we used to have to type out all these leases and not make a mistake. So I found it interesting work. It got me interested in legal practice and law.
How fascinating. Oh my goodness. Those typewriters?
Oh gosh,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
I've been through all the various computations of typewriters, I can tell you.
Oh, wow. And what a skill to learn though, right? A lot of people think, why secretarial skills? It's so useless, but actually so important, right? As years went
Yeah.
on. And we
Yeah,
all had to learn typing skills for our
absolutely.
laptops, etc. It was fantastic. Wow, what an amazing story. I never knew that about you.
Yeah, well, that good old touch typing, you can't beat it.
No, that's so fascinating. And so what happened next then? You're interested in the law. I mean, if you work in a law firm or around law firms, you're either interested or you go, I'm never going to work here. So it drew you in. You liked it. So
Yes.
where did that take you
Yes.
next?
And in order to become a solicitor, I needed to get a law degree. And so I decided that I needed to do some more A levels in order to get into the university that was closest to me. And I was lucky because the university closest to me was Southampton University, and it wasn't far away. And I was lucky. I did some more A levels. I used to, because I had a child, I used to have to get up early in the morning to study for them, etc., etc.
Yes. Yes.
But all that went quite smoothly, and I managed to get into Southampton University as a mature student. It sounds so funny. I was only 26.
Oh my goodness, 26, and that's mature
I
student.
know. But you are mature. That's what you
Yeah.
fall within the definition at that point of being a
Yes.
mature student.
That's
So I
because you
went,
aren't in the straight from school. That's why,
yeah,
isn't it? Yeah.
exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Carry
Exactly.
on. Yeah.
So I was
Carry on.
about sort of 7 or 8 years older than my other fellow students at university. And I was lucky because Southampton University is one of those universities that does specialize in maritime law. They offer good maritime law subjects when you're studying law. And I chose those. And I realized at that point that that was an area that I was really interested in, looking back at my childhood again, of course, and that I wanted to work in shipping law if I could, if possible. And so when I qualified, I started working in a trade and shipping law firm, very small firm. And in those days, I was an article clerk. This is before trainees. Yeah. So I was an article clerk, and I did my 2 years at a very small law firm. But I was lucky; it did have some really good work, and we did shipping and trade work, freight forwarders work, that type of thing. And then
Incredible.
I moved to a larger law firm that did a lot of specialized shipping work for actually, there are a lot of London Greeks based in London, ship owners. And so that was a practice that we did. And at that point, I was introduced to the nature of clients that shipping law firms have. And those clients are, of course, ship owners and charterers, but they are also the companies that insure the liability of ship owners and also that insure the hulls of the ships. And the companies that insure ship owners' liability are called P&I Clubs. And so that was my introduction to the world of shipping, the ship owners, the charterers, their insurers. Just opened up that world to me.
So fascinating. I didn't even know that at all about. I knew the differences and there are all these different people, but the relationship between that and the P&I clubs.
Yeah,
Fascinating. And then Southampton, I'm thinking that's a port, isn't it? So
it is.
I
Yes, I
think that's
suppose that.
where the
Yeah.
first, I think, four ships came from there to, say, Christchurch in New Zealand, where I grew up. So I'm
Ah,
pretty sure it was from Southampton
probably.
port that they all departed from. So that's sort of taking me into sort of nostalgic kind of area as
Yeah.
well. I've got a vision in front of me of what it looks like. It's probably completely different. How lovely though that this is all tying in, right? From your days when you were, seeing the ships, right? When
Yeah.
you were in Lagos
Yeah.
and
And
then
the
all of
pollution
this.
offshore and yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
destiny. Like it's here we go, chartering your destiny, isn't it?
Very nice. I like that.
Very nice. Wow. Tell me more. Like you joined these companies and had lots of time, and I think that took you to various countries, right? You talked about just Greek there, that there are a lot of London Greeks who were the
Mm.
owners, right, of the ships, right? So that took you, I'm sure, there's connection here between New York and Greece and Singapore and then London again. Tell us about all of that period then, as you're moving and building up steam in this area and, the fascinating things that happened during those times.
Yes. Well, to start with, I was working in private practice with this English law firm, Constant and Constant, actually. doesn't exist anymore. But that's the firm that did a lot of work for London Greeks, amongst other things, of course. And then I moved to Italy and worked with an Italian law firm there for 2 years. At the time, I had friends in Italy, and so I wanted to move there, and I was very interested in doing that. And I knew this law firm, which specialized in maritime law, a well-known law firm, Studio Legali Vincenzini.
Lovely. Did you reach out to them?
Well, actually, one of their partners, he was the son of the senior partner. He was working in the London, in Constant to Constant for a bit. He did
There you go.
and so I sort of met him and I persuaded him that they needed somebody within their office in Italy, in Livorno, which is on the west coast of Italy. So I worked there for a couple of years. And then, so that was private practice. But while I was there, I met somebody from one of the P&I clubs. And there are 12 major P&I clubs in the world. And the reason I'm saying that is because that's important, because they have the ability to lobby and obtain reinsurance for the ship owners, for the liability that ship owners have, which, as you will know, can be very big. And one of these P&I clubs, one of their managers happened to be in Italy and said, why don't you think about P&I work if you ever come back to the UK? And that's started. So I worked in London for a year. I was then persuaded to go back into private practice by somebody who used to work at Constant to Constant and who moved to another well-known maritime law firm called Ince & Co. Ince & Co now no longer exists for various reasons, which we won't go into. But at the time, it was one of the major maritime law firms. And so I worked there for 3 years. But I had enjoyed very much working with the P&I Club for reasons that I'll tell you about. And I didn't enjoy Ince & Co so much, having had that experience at the P&I Club. And so when I heard that the P&I Club needed somebody to work in their New York office, I said, I think that might be me. And so I worked there. I worked in New York for 2 years. It was absolutely great. I loved it. And that went well. And so I was asked to go and work with the same company in their office in Athens, in Greece, in Piraeus. And so I moved over there and headed up a team of our claims executives, we call them, and worked there for 4 years. I'm just trying to think now. So I worked there between 2006 and 2010. It was wonderful. Absolutely
Wow.
great.
What an amazing journey there. And things are linking up, right? You meet somebody, you go back to private practice, but you realize your real destiny is in the P&I clubs. And then you're in New York having fun, and then Greece comes up again.
Yeah.
Incredible.
And then after Greece,
Yeah.
I wanted to move to Asia because my son had started to work in Japan. And I asked my P&I club if it would be possible to work in one of the Far East offices. And they didn't have an office in Japan, but a position came up in their Singapore office. And so they asked me to go over there and head up the team there, the claims team there. And from Singapore, we were working out of all the insurers in Asia Pacific. We were also working with Japanese insureds because the P&I club that I work with had a joint venture with a large Japanese insurance company that I'm working with now.
Wow, look at that. If you just plot the course across a map of what you've done, it's so connected and everything's linked to something else. And I just love what you've said. And you've got to tell me what you love about P&I clubs. You mentioned it just before. What is it about it? Because some people might think, I can't get it. What does this mean? What are they doing? What is it that she loves?
Yeah, well, what's interesting about a P&I club is, as I said, they insure the liability of ship owners. So by that, there have been some incidents that we can all think of immediately. And the most recent one that I think a lot of us think of is the ship Dali in Baltimore Port, which hit the bridge and the bridge collapsed.
Yes.
Now, what a P&I club does is insure the liability of ship owners to third parties. And so the third party in that incident is the Port Authority, amongst others, but the primary third party will be the Port Authority to whom the ship owner is liable. So a P&I club is insuring that liability. And when I mentioned earlier about 12 P&I clubs, this is why it becomes important, because those 12 P&I clubs, they're independent and they compete, but they do form a group called the international group. And the international group has the power to arrange very, very powerful reinsurance. And if it couldn't do it, we wouldn't be able to. P&I clubs would not be able to cover the liability and the exposure for an incident such as that one.
Wow. How does the reinsurance then work in that kind of situation, the Baltimore port situation?
Well, the P&I club that insures that ship owner for his liability will directly cover liabilities up to a certain level. And
Right.
it's around 10 million US dollars.
Yeah.
And then after that, the reinsurance, there are different levels of reinsurance and different products that one looks to for the cover under the reinsurance that's provided on the open market. And so, yeah, the rest of it will be reinsured by the open market. But these 12 P&I clubs, so after the 10 million, for example, that the P&I club will pay out, the exposure is then put into what's called the pool of the other 12 P&I clubs, and they will each contribute to the exposure in accordance with the levels that are worked out under the pooling agreement.
Wow.
And then after that reinsurance is exceeded, the cover will then move into the cover that's provided by the open market. So it's quite a complicated
Very
arrangement.
complicated.
Yeah. But it does mean that there is very wide cover in place for these large incidents.
Amazing. And is it often English law that covers these shipping agreements on these kinds of insurance? Is it?
That's right. So to sort of pull it back to why I become involved with it, a P&I club will also, it provides immediate assistance to ship owners when they've got a problem. So in other words, they'll telephone somebody and say, get somebody out there to help you, get a surveyor out or get an expert out. But it also has to provide advice on the legal problems that the ship owners are facing. And it has to provide sort of, immediate advice. So a ship owner rings up and he says, oh my goodness, I've just touched, not as dramatic as the Dali, but I'm in Egypt and I've touched the berth and I've got a problem. What do you think is the exposure? And so, of course, that'll be under Egyptian law, but you need to arrange an Egyptian lawyer. A lot of the contracts, there may be a cargo claim that arises from that ship that's touched the berth and there's all sorts of problems. And the cargo claim will be dealt with and governed by the Bill of Lading Carriage of Law contract. And so that's often governed by English law, not always, but often. And also the contractual arrangements between ship owners and their charterers will often be governed by English law. And so we are asked to have a look at the problems that arise under those contracts and give advice on them. And with a P&I club, you give immediate advice, but you will often have to outsource it, of course, to specialist lawyers as well. So you have to be You are, what I like about it is that you are immediately involved with the ship owner and their problem. And you need to be able to help them quickly and efficiently and get them in the right direction, give them sensible advice, and make sure that the whole issue is coordinated and dealt with by appropriate specialists, whether it's lawyers or surveyors or experts or whatever that might be. You're really involved right from the start with the problems that the ship owner faces immediately. And it's not just hitting Baltimore Bridge. It's problems like crew members having accidents or becoming ill or maybe unfortunately dying, and you have to arrange them to be shipped back, or you get stowaways on board,
stowaways. Gosh, that'd be interesting.
ship collisions, or so it can be the mundane all the way through to the dramatic.
Well, I can see why you're really interested in that particular way with these kinds of incidents that happen, and you don't really want them to happen, obviously, but it is what happens. And is there anything else about this work that you love that gives you real great feelings?
Well, I mean, the ships themselves, they give that good old tingle when you see them coming in and out of port. And when I've been on holidays here in Japan with my family, it's great to take the car on board a ferry, and go somewhere.
Well,
It's
that's
absolutely
great.
wonderful.
Yeah, they're majestic, aren't they, when you see them out on the horizon as
Yeah.
well. And I'm a plane lover, but you're the ship lover. But
Oh,
I
you're a
know what you
plane
mean.
lover, are you? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I know the
Yeah.
feeling that you get when you see them. And if you're not a plane lover or a ship lover, you may not understand what we're doing and talking about here. But it is very much, if you like that, you love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some people love trains, of course, too, don't
Of
they?
course, trains. There we go.
Yeah.
Of course, we're in
Yeah. Yeah.
Japan. That's right. What about someone listening here who's curious about the work you're doing and thinks, I wonder how I could do that work? What kind of tips or advice might you give that person?
Well, if you want to work with a P&I club, then you need to, obviously, we need to have the analytical skills as lawyers, but one also needs to have the ability to work well as part of a team, because you are sitting together, or actually you need a large number of people because there's a lot of work, you can imagine. There are a lot of ship owners and there are problems coming in all the time. And you need to be flexible. I think you need to have the ability to work well with a lot of different types of people and different nationalities. So you need to have good communication skills, because you are often speaking to people in English, of course, to someone where English is not their native language. It might be the client ship owner, or it might be that person in Egypt that you're ringing up. The ship's hit the berth, and so you need to ring up the contact that the club has in Egypt and speak to them and arrange for them to get somebody out there to help the ship owner. So you need to be able to communicate well, and you need to be able to build trust in your client. It's very important. You need to be one of those people that is a good communicator, trustworthy, and loyal, I think. Well, that's the same in all our lives, of course, isn't it? But
I've written them all down. Analytical skills. Work well
yes.
as part of a team, be flexible, work well with lots of different types of people and nationalities, have good communication skills, build trust in the client, and be loyal. What a great list.
Well, if your client trusts you, and then you have to say something that's not something they want to hear. For example, they've got a problem and they think, oh, this is insured. Let's go to the P&I club, and you have to say very carefully, well, actually, that particular problem is not insured. So
Oh,
if that client trusts you and knows that you're there to help them, then it's much easier for them to accept bad news from you, for example, than it is if you don't have that trust. And that's the same for everyone, isn't it?
wow, yes. Goodness me. I'm going to ask you shortly about your advice or tips for young lawyers as they're coming up the ranks now and successfully working in Japan, maybe your tips there. So I'll plot that and then just ask you before that, the most important thing you think you've learned from your law career so far. Is there one thing that stands out as being really important for you?
Yes, I do think that loyalty
Mm.
is an important point that I've learned.
What does that mean to you?
So it has sort of a number of different themes, I suppose. But I think that if you are loyal to your employer and to your colleagues and to your clients, it will take you a long way, because being a loyal person creates a trust again in your colleagues and those in your bosses and in your clients. It's important, I think, in the market and within which you work, because if you have a reputation, of course, as a disloyal person, you might be excellent with your analytical skills, for example, but you're not necessarily going to be someone that a company or a client wants to have working with them. So I think that loyalty is pretty critical. And I think also I see that a lot in Japan. People are loyal to their companies and to their colleagues. I
Mm,
really do notice that amongst my
yes,
Japanese colleagues, and it's
absolutely.
a huge asset, I think.
Yeah, you mentioned with the list of seven that you need, right? Analytical skills, but nothing can counteract that if you are disloyal.
I quite
Yeah.
agree.
Fantastic. Wow. And so then moving to that advice for lawyers who are coming up the ranks. I mean, you went through from your younger days in an office observing what was going on and working out through doing your law degree that you wanted to be in this area of law. How about other lawyers or young, grads from law school coming through now? Is there any advice you would give them to be looking for, avoid perhaps, something that you might give from your experience?
I think that it's good to have a plan. It doesn't have to be stuck in stone, but it is good to have a plan. Think about the direction that you want to go in right from the start, if you can, and whether you can achieve that, because not all of us can achieve it immediately. I mean, you might have family commitments, you might have children or whatever. And sometimes you have to, the plan that you have isn't immediately feasible, but you can work towards achieving it. But you need to have flexibility as well, because if you face problems, for example, family problems or problems with the work, the law firm that you're with, even though I've said being loyal, I mean, sometimes loyalty can't take you through a bad working experience. So you need to be flexible as well with your plan, and don't be afraid to change it and to change direction. Absolutely, don't be afraid to change direction. Particularly as lady lawyers, we do need to fight our corner a bit. And that doesn't mean that we need to be overly aggressive, but I think that we need to be fighting our corner firmly and with dignity. And yes, we are here. We do want that high flying position. We are able to achieve that. And even if it's not a high flying position, we need to do the best we can to get ourselves in a working environment where we can really use our skills and show them, and actually show them in a positive way, so that our employer is getting, we're getting benefit for them and they're getting real benefit from us. And so it's you scratch my back and I'll scratch yours and everybody's happy. It's a win-win situation.
Yeah, I love it. I love that you've also said it doesn't always have to be that most high flying position.
No,
It can
no.
be something that you simply excel
Yeah.
at your particular level, that you do your
Yes.
very best, that you're going to your highest game, your best attitude in that particular role.
Yes. Because if you excel at something and you feel that you're excelling at it, it transmits, I think, across the board in your work, to your colleagues, to your boss, to your clients. And it helps them achieve as well, I think.
Mm.
It's a team effort.
How does that happen in your current role? I guess you're there and there's not many people like you in your firm, perhaps throughout Japan. How are you helping how you feel? And obviously you're passionate about this area. How is that helping to transmit to others?
I'm working in the marine claims department of the insurance company. And in that work, for the reasons that I've given before, they often face English law problems and they have to speak to English lawyers, and they have to speak to other foreign nationals where the common language might be English. Not always. I mean, often they're dealing with Chinese, for example. But they have to do a lot of English speaking and they have to do a lot of English communication. So they need assistance with getting quick opinions on a legal position, so the analytical advice on under a charter party, for example, or if there's a cargo claim. So that's one aspect that they might ask you about. And I'm often asked to give some advice to the client ship owner. So my colleague who's dealing with that ship owner will get the request from the ship owner and he'll pass it on to me. If you like, he'll instruct me because I'm an independent legal consultant. But then there are other aspects of the work as well that I can help with, drafting in English, simply talking in English all the time, giving presentations and that type of thing. It helps my colleagues, I hope, I believe and I hope, to have me there. And if they have particularly sensitive or difficult message to write, which can be quite lengthy for them and difficult, I can help with that, because sometimes, you just need to get a little extra nuance into a message, positive or strong, or, well, we are taking this position, but these are the reasons why, and we have to be very diplomatic. And so I can help them with that type of drafting as well. So there's a lot of ways that I can help out.
Wow. And so you've been here for a while now in Japan.
Yes, I've been here, 7 years.
So over that time, what would you say would be your tips for success over that period to working in Japan? Because Japan's a little bit of a different entity to other areas. There's obviously a language difference, but is there some tips that you might have for successfully working as a lawyer, as a consultant, as you are here?
Well, I think clear communication is very important, particularly when you are dealing with a team of people who, many of them have very, very good English skills, and some of them not quite so good. And so it's very important to have clear communication, both orally and in writing. And again, it comes back to loyalty, I think. It's important for me. I feel that my company's been loyal to me. And so I think it's very important for me to be loyal with them. So loyalty, teamwork, flexibility. One has to be,
Mm.
well, I think all of us who are in-house, I mean, I'm an independent consultant, but I'm effectively in-house. You get all sorts of questions. So you have to be flexible as well, and tolerant.
Tolerant,
So,
yes.
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes the work that comes may not be completely on point to being a legal advice or helping somebody negotiate over the phone with an English person sitting in London. It sometimes is not quite there, but you've got to help people with it, right? Because it's part of the whole package of the work. And that's where I think tolerance comes in absolutely, right?
Absolutely. You're quite right.
An
Yeah.
example I've got is I remember being in one company and writing letters or replies for the president, people that the president had met, or things that the president was going to be saying in front of other people. And to be able to do that is not perhaps not directly related to a lawyer's core job, but it
Yeah.
also represents the company, doesn't it? That top of the company's going out talking to people or is writing a letter to somebody. And so you are indeed helping the company as a whole. So it was really important work. And I used to think it was actually quite fun doing it. But that's where some tolerance might come in, because someone might say, hey, that's not my job. Or would that
Yeah.
be better for HR to write that? Why am I doing this? So I think,
Yeah.
is that the kind of thing you're thinking about? That's what I think about when I hear tolerance as a word,
Yes.
as a lawyer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yes, that's right. There are all sorts of different things that one's asked to do, but that's tolerance and flexibility as well. I think that
Yes.
you have to be flexible, like you say.
Wow. Let's just look around the corner to the future of law. Is there anything in your particular area or anything you can see in the Japanese legal industry, perhaps, that is coming that is a little bit, well, it's something that we need to be looking at, to be have on our radar, to be careful about and think about for the future of working as a lawyer in Japan?
I think that the future of law is very strong, because obviously there are continuous problems of all different types and all different levels that will need lawyers' input. In my particular field, there are significant issues now arising because of the conflicts around the world and sanctions, for example.
Yes. Mm.
And so that's an area which is becoming very important. And there's a large scope for people to move into that type of work, and climate change. And certainly with maritime law, there are all sorts of various fields that one can be involved in pollution. There are various organizations, ITOP, for example, that deals with pollution issues specifically. the International Maritime Organization, BIMCO. There are a lot of different roles that a lawyer can work in maritime law. So it's not just private practice or indeed P&I clubs,
Yes, think
It's
broadly.
think broadly, and then even more widely, one can become involved in as an arbitrator or in. I'm very strong advocate for alternative dispute resolution, such as mediation. I'm very, very enthusiastic about taking disputes to a mediation rather than having to fight them all the way through in a court battle or in an arbitration battle. So it's a very wide field. And so lawyers, I think there's a lot of interesting work that people become involved with.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with you. There's and that art of mediation, I think it's a little bit lost in Japan, perhaps. Maybe it's happening
Yeah.
outside of arbitration and the courtroom on a daily basis, given Japan does like to keep things quite on the level and resolve things quickly. But I remember back in the day, if I think of New Zealand and practicing there, mediation was a big thing. And now it seems to have floated a little bit away. But I love that you've got a passion for that, and perhaps there's a way
Yeah.
of bringing that more back into regular ways that lawyers do work.
Well, you're quite right, Catherine. The point you made about in Japan that Japanese parties often want to resolve issues outside court. Is that what you were saying?
Yes, that's right.
Yes. And I think that if there is a matrimonial dispute, that in that area of law, I think it is encouraged mediation. I think it's part of the procedure. I've got a
Right,
feeling. I'm not
right.
sure.
I think you're
And
right.
so I think you're right. I mean, really,
Mm.
in litigation, I hope it will take off here as well because it should do. I think it would be very good.
Yes,
Japanese are very often not so confrontational because of the loyalty they have with their partners. And so in business, I mean, I'm not
yes.
talking about matrimony now, but I think it's got a real future here, actually, if it could take off
Mm.
a bit
Maybe
more.
that's something in your
Mm.
future that you can challenge. It would be interesting. A mediation
Well,
club,
I'm still
Japan.
studying Japanese, but I don't think my skills would be quite so.
But it'd be interesting, wouldn't it? A Japan mediation club. I know there's the Japan arbitration clubs that have just been set
Yes.
up in the last year, and then maybe a mediation club could be quite a fun thing to do.
Yes. Yeah.
Anyway, we put it out there. You heard it here first. Gillian, is there anything that we covered today that you want to re-emphasize or anything that we didn't mention that you sort of got in your head to prepare for today? I don't want to leave anything off the table, on the table that we haven't covered.
I just want to say that I think that law is such a good thing for women to enter. There are so many different opportunities to work as a lawyer in different fields. And also, you can work part-time if you're with the right type of organization as well. So it's a wonderful career, I think, for a woman. Really wonderful.
I
So I
certainly.
would just like to emphasize that.
All right, well, let's finish up the podcast as I often do on a lighter note with some quickfire questions. I'm sure you've got a few things to answer here. Let's see how we go. These are not prepared, so they're what's coming through as I am thinking about you. But I do often ask people about their favorite saying. It might be in English or Japanese or another language, because you've learnt, I think, Italian and perhaps a little bit of Greek and other ones along the way there. But favorite saying or a mantra that you have that you use a lot?
Well, it's an English saying, actually.
Yes.
My father used to say it a lot, but you never know what's around the next corner. And I often say that because people think that they're stuck in a rut or that things are going wrong. But you never know what's around the next corner. So seize that opportunity when you have it, or just make the most of every little good thing that happens.
Exactly.
You never know what's coming around the next
I
corner.
love it. That was really a guiding language from your dad. Can you share a book that you're reading or have read recently that you recommend?
Yes, actually, I recently read a book recommended by my son. It's a science fiction book, actually, and it's called Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky.
Mm.
And it's about sort of the last survivors of Earth or humanity trying to populate a new planet. And then it takes many years, and people go into, they go into this sort of sleep form so that they can travel for thousands of years, etc. I won't bore you with that. But by the time they find a new planet, and by the time they land, they find that it's already been populated due to an error on their part by another species. The two species have to work out how to work together. And so it's really interesting about humans' prejudices and fears and how people can work together. So, yeah, I would recommend that.
Interesting. When you said sci-fi, I was going, oh dear.
I know,
And
people do.
Again, my prejudice went there. There we go. And now
Yes.
you've said this, I'm thinking, intriguing.
No, but you see, science fiction, often people think that it's for children, or it's a bit childish, not for children, but a bit childish. But actually, it really does look at a lot of, well, this one is fascinating, so I recommend it.
Wow. Awesome. And if you were not doing your current role, what would you be doing?
Of course, for the avoidance of doubt, I do love my...
Of course. I know that. But what's over there that might...
Well, alternative dispute resolution does interest me, I have to say. I think it would always be something that I might be involved with work-wise, be something maritime orientated, let's say.
Right.
But alternative dispute resolution and mediation and conciliation, getting things resolved outside court.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. And what about something about you that people don't know?
Well, it's a bit boring, really. But I enjoy drafting, actually. And if I was thinking that really I would have quite liked to have maybe worked for the government helping drafting legislation.
There you go. Well, there's your other alternative as well. Wow.
Well, it comes back to the way that words are placed, and how important that is. And if you actually just have to read a news article to see how it influences you and the placement of words as to whether you're getting a negative or a positive feel.
Absolutely.
But with legislation, every word, the placement of it is critical. So I think that's...
If you had an opportunity to spend a day with someone in history, anybody, alive or dead, who would that be? And why would you do that? Why would you choose that person?
Well, I think I would like to meet someone like Michelle Obama, actually.
Right. I don't know why I had in my head you're going to say Michelle Obama.
She's like a real role model I think. Of course, she's a lawyer. And of course, she's the wife of former President Obama. And the way that she behaved and her role that she took while he was president, she always acted, I thought, with a huge amount of dignity. And the work that she's done over the years, I don't think she came from a particularly privileged background, but hey, what does that matter? She's an example, actually, I think, of exactly what, how you can achieve, how you can achieve, and working hard and with dignity all the way through. And I found a little saying that she said, which I thought was wonderful. She said, and this is in relation to women working. She said, the only limit to the height of your achievements is the reach of your dreams and your willingness to work hard for them. And, that gives me a little tingle because I think that's nice.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I think it says it all, really.
Okay, I'm going to finish up with one little interesting question. But if you had a magic wish to get any talent at all, what would you wish for?
I'd like to be good at languages. I'd like to be able to speak Japanese fluently.
Wow, yeah, fluent in Japanese. Yes.
I think that's a talent to be able to speak, to learn a language.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Gillian, we have come to the end of the chat today. I really thank you so much for this absolutely fascinating journey, voyage across the seas of your life.
Oh,
in maritime
law.
I just have so thoroughly enjoyed it. And after all these years, it's so great to actually finally have this conversation. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, me too. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's been a pleasure.
And if people want to get in touch with you to hear more, they want to join you in starting the mediation club, or they want to just know a little bit more about what you've done in your life and how you're managing things in Japan, how can they get hold of you?
Well, I think LinkedIn would be fine.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'm on there.
Great.
So, yeah.
We'll put that link for you to LinkedIn in the show notes. That's wonderful. And for everyone who's listening, please do head on over to Apple Podcasts to leave a review about this particular episode. Tell us what you loved about it. Share this episode with someone you know would be inspired to live another lawyer extraordinaire life just like Gillian. And we will leave it there today. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you on the next episode. Cheers, kampai, and bye for now. Thank you so much for listening today to this episode of Lawyer on Air. I really hope that you were inspired by the story you heard and that you discovered something new about women in the law. Please subscribe to the show so that you don't miss future episodes. And if you can think of even just one person to share this episode with, that would make my day. I invite you to connect with me to talk more. Jump on over to LinkedIn or Instagram where you can find me, or send me a message via my website contact page. That's all from me today. I look forward to seeing you right here on the next episode of Lawyer on Air. Cheers, kampai, and bye for now.